President Trump, meanwhile, handily beating Nikki Haley last night in the GOP primary in Michigan, picking up 12 delegates. President Biden also winning the Democrat primary there, despite more than 100,000 Democrats voting, quote unquote, uncommitted as an act of protest against his support for Israel's war on Gaza. So they're committed to the Democrats, but they're not committed to Joe. A new poll from Emerson College and The Hill shows former President Trump leading President Biden in Wisconsin by 3 points. That puts him in a position to win all 7 key swing states, if you believe the polls. Joining me right now is civil rights attorney, talk radio host, and Fox News contributor Leo Terrell, and former New York State Senator and Democrat strategist David Carlucci. Great to see you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. Leo, assess the field for us, your thoughts and reaction to the primary yesterday.
Thank you, Maria. First of all, Nikki Haley is destroying her political career. President Trump has swept all the primaries so far up to date, and he's going to be the nominee. We all know that. What you saw in Michigan last night from Joe Biden, a vote of no confidence of 100,000 voters who do not support Joe Biden. Maria, the Democrats is the anti-Israel party. You saw that in Michigan. And what you have here now is a result that people looked at the 4 years of the Trump administration and they're comparing it with the disastrous 3.5 years of the Biden administration. That is why Joe Biden is losing the battleground states. That is why President Trump is going to be the next president.
David Carlucci, what do you make of this federal study group that they're going to pay young voters to work around elections? It almost suggests they want to pay young people for their vote.
Well, as long as it's not partisan, and that's what is clearly laid out in that memo, that young people should be involved in this process and should be poll workers.
Well, how do we know it's not partisan? It's a Democrat party. I mean, it's a Democrat party idea, and the vice president, Kamala Harris, told us about it. How do we know it's not going to be partisan?
Well, it can't be, and that's the way it's going to be administered throughout the country, as long as it's not pushing an idea, supporting a group. It could function. And I've been someone that's been involved for a long time, and any way that we can get young people involved and do it in a fair way, I think is healthy for democracy. You go to these election sites. These poll workers are overworked, and it's sometimes a desperate situation to find people to work those long hours. So I think this is a step in the right direction.
Do you think that the young groups care about the border? We've got dueling border trips right now, David. President Biden and President Trump both planning to visit the border tomorrow. Biden will travel to Brownsville, Texas, while Trump will deliver remarks 325 miles away in Eagle Pass, Texas. The Border Patrol Union is slamming Biden's border trip, calling it too little, too late, David. I mean, why is he going now? Is it because it's an election year? He hasn't done anything in 3 years.
No, I think he recognizes that the border is a serious, serious issue and one that has to be addressed. And Biden has said, look, we've got to pass the Senate bipartisan bill that will put the most comprehensive border security we've had in decades.
Well, I don't know that it's, by the way, I don't know that it's the most comprehensive border security we've seen in decades at all. I mean, you said that, the Democrats are saying that, but I don't really know that to be true, because it allows 5,000, it allows 5,000 people to come into the country every day. So I don't know that it's so secure, by the way. But David, that's what I'm asking you. I mean, all President Biden has to do is undo what he did on day one, right? He walked into the Oval Office. First thing he did is he canceled all of Trump's security at the border. So all he really has to do is go back, put Remain in Mexico back in place, put those deals in place that Trump had with those Northern Triangle countries that they're going to stay in Mexico and those countries before coming to the U.S. Why doesn't the president just do that? That's all he has to do.
Well, it's called the judicial system, and the court has blocked many of the policies that he's tried to put in place.
No, they're not going to block an executive order. But you know, David, you know that they're not going to block an executive order. They can't. You know that.
The same thing happened with Trump. He was stymied by the court, and the answer is this has to be done through legislation. There can be minor fixes.
Leo Terrell, jump in here because it's not just legislation.
Thank you very much, because David, you have to be honest with the Fox viewers. Let's be very clear. The only reason why Biden is going to the border is because of President Trump. President Trump Remain in Mexico policy worked. We had the most secure border ever. You could ask Tom Homan of that fact. That is undisputed. We have illegal immigrants coming to this country and murdering Let me finish, sir, please, respectfully. And murdering American citizens. You have a New York mayor, Eric Adams, now wants to remodify the sanctuary city laws. Let's be very clear. The only reason why Joe Biden is addressing the immigration issue is because it's the #1 issue on the mind of the American people. We had Mayorkas and we had Kamala Harris go on national TV and lie and say that the border was secure. David, tell the American public right now, the border is not secure. Just admit that fact. It's not secure.
Right, and that's why the president is going to the border, because something has to get done.
It took 3 years.
The president's going to try to do what he can, but it takes two to tango.
No,
it takes two to tango. This has to be done comprehensively.
Because all the president has to do is do the executive orders, just like Trump did, just like Biden did at the beginning of his term.
Title 42, a COVID-era policy. The Supreme Court made Joe Biden, or the court made Joe Biden overturn Title 42.
Sometimes, David,
you got to
put the American people ahead of the party. And you know, and I know, and everyone in this country knows that the border is out of control. Put the country ahead of the Democratic Party, please. Just on the issue of the border.
I think we all agree.
We
all agree the border is out of control.
Well,
and it's because we have ancient policies on the books that need to be amended, brought into the 21st century.
I don't know that we all agree. We heard from Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer yesterday, and and this is the Democrat policy. Emmy, do we have the Schumer soundbite? I want to get your thoughts on what Chuck Schumer said yesterday.
Look at Mike Johnson.
As soon as he came out of the meeting yesterday. Yeah, as soon as Chuck Schumer came out of the meeting yesterday, he was telling us, he did a press conference, he wanted to explain, what the meeting was about, and he was stressing the fact that the Congress, the Senate, wants to send money to Ukraine. He said, we'll deal with the border later. Do we have the soundbite? I want to get your reaction to this.
Yes,
watch this, David. Listen to this.
The overwhelming sentiment in that meeting is we got to do Ukraine now. And there are other issues, including border, which we should address, but not now. We said to the Speaker, get it done.
The first priority of the country is our border and making sure it's secure. It's time for action. It is a catastrophe, and it must stop.
So, David Carlucci, you're a Democrat strategist. Do you agree with that? The money to Ukraine has to go now. You do the border later. Do you agree with that? That's what the Democrats want to do.
The Senate put forth
Answer her
a border
question.
bill.
No, it's not what I'm asking.
Answer her question.
We could talk about the Senate bill. I know the Senate bill very well. Okay, we could talk about why it failed. Nobody, certainly the Republicans, did not ask any senators to go and start from scratch and come up with some gargantuan immigration policy. That's not what the Republicans were asking. The Republicans want the border secure. Period. That's it. You've had 10 million people who've come in. You've got 10 million people who've come in on Joe Biden's watch. They want it stopped. A woman is dead this morning.
Yes.
Okay, and a woman is dead, and many others are dead at the hands of illegal migrants. Now, the question I just asked you, David.
And then why,
David, the question I just asked you is: do you agree with your colleagues that you just heard Chuck Schumer say? Do you agree with that? The money to Ukraine needs to go now. Do the border later. Do you agree?
I agree. We need to do it all. And
that's not what he said. That is not what Schumer said.
That's not the question. That wasn't the question.
That's not what Schumer said. Schumer said, send the money to Ukraine now.
It's not a this or that.
Do you agree with that?
It's not a this or that. I think we're taking it out of context.
What are you talking about? We just heard the soundbite. You heard Chuck Schumer say it himself.
He said the top priority is the border, and yet
No, he didn't. That's not. Run the soundbite again.
No, he did not.
Let's run the soundbite again.
He did not say that.
He's not doing it.
Play the soundbite. He did not say that.
The overwhelming sentiment in that meeting is we got to do Ukraine now. And there are other issues, including border, which we should address, but not now. We said to the Speaker, get it done.
The first priority of the country is our border and making sure it's secure. It's time for action. It is a catastrophe, and it must stop.
David, that's the second time we ran the soundbite. Chuck Schumer was very clear. Money to Ukraine now, border later. Do you agree?
Yes or no?
Yes or no? Of that conversation, yes. You're making me choose one or the other, and that's an unfair choice.
Yeah.
No, all I'm asking you is if you agree with Chuck Schumer. All I'm asking you is if you agree with Chuck Schumer.
I agree with Chuck Schumer. Look, that is on. You have to put it in context.
Therein lies the problem. Therein lies the problem.
He said The context is they
Thank you,
put
gentlemen.
forth a bill.
I just wanted to know if you agree. You're a Democrat strategist. David Carlucci, thank you. Leo Terrell, thank you.